in the midst of untruth, truth persists.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asima Katauka and you're watching the China Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. Chinese Premier Li Qiang has told South African President Cyril Ramaphosa in Johannesburg that China is ready to build trust and expand strategic cooperation. This comes as Li, who is attending the G20 summit, said China will align its new 15th five-year plan with South Africa's 10-point economic plan and push for the early implementation of zero-tariff treatment. China and Vietnam have completed their 39th joint naval patrol in the Beibu Gulf, with two vessels from each side conducting security monitoring, information exchanges, and a coordinated search and rescue drill. The patrol, part of a 2005 bilateral agreement, highlighted the heightened growing cooperation and complex maritime conditions. China's top general Zhang Yuxia and Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov have agreed in Moscow to deepen military cooperation, as both sides shared a new strategic blueprint amid growing tensions. Senior delegations led by Andriy Malyugin and Li Qijiang also held talks on strategic stability while vowing closer coordination on security issues. A bipartisan group of U.S. House lawmakers led by Brian Fitzpatrick have moved to bypass Speaker Mike Johnson and force a vote requiring 218 signatures on a bill imposing sweeping new sanctions on Russia, including 500 tariffs on countries buying Russian oil, gas, or uranium. The vote is expected after the Thanksgiving recess. Former Argentine President Mauricio Macri has warned that President Javier Milei's push to align more closely with the United States could backfire by jeopardizing Argentina's crucial export ties with China, its key buyer of soy, beef, and commodities. Macri, once a key Milei ally, openly split with the current President Milei. A Chinese humanoid robot built by AGBot has set a Guinness World Record by walking 106.286 kilometers non-stop. A A2 robot's three-day trek demonstrated major progress in hardware balance, algorithms, and endurance, marking a significant step towards large-scale commercial deployment. U.S. President Donald Trump and New York Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani put aside months of public feuding in a warm White House meeting, trading praise and vowing to work together on crime and affordability in America's biggest city. They had then showed appreciation for each other as they were able to move past their differences. G20 leaders have gathered in South Africa without the United States after President Donald Trump boycotted the summit over false claims of persecution against white South Africans. However, a draft declaration including climate language the U.S. opposes was agreed regardless of the lack of American input. Now for this hour, we start with China and Japan. Chinese cruise operators are scrambling to avoid Japanese ports as Beijing and Tokyo engage in a diplomatic dispute over Japanese Prime Minister Sanai Takaichi's comments, suggesting that a Chinese attack on Taiwan threatening Japanese survival could prompt a Japanese military response. According to tour and port agents, this could cause Chinese tourists to be redirected to South Korea from Japan, resulting in a decreased inflow of tourists to Japan and a spur in demand for tourism in South Korea. As per reports, South Korea has emerged as the top destination for Chinese travelers in terms of the volume of international flight tickets booked over the weekend of November 15th and November 16th. Adora Magic City, a Chinese cruise ship that travels to South Korea's tourist island of Jeju as well as Japan, has changed its schedule for December to avoid stopping at the Japanese ports of Fukuoka, Sasebo, and Nagasaki as planned. Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru, for joining us again. Good to see you. Dr. Satoru, how is Japan being hit? What are the effects of the growing China and Japan rift now?
Japan side hasn't escalated any situation, and China side escalated the situation. So view from Japan, Japan is not wrong, and China is wrong. So of course, China step up economical pressure and now military pressure. It is true, but because we are not wrong, there is no problem for us and to continue our stance. That is the current situation. Indeed, background reality, China want to escalate because they want to escalate, but the reason why is the matter. And in this case, the new government sworn and Prime Minister Takaichi's capability, China want to know. And so this is a stress test to making pressure. View from this, there's a high possibility that China will continue to make pressure until they get enough data about Prime Minister Takaichi. So it is unavoidable. At the same time, this making pressure itself is not meaning China is confront against Japan for a long time. So that's why this will be the temporal crisis between two. And so that's why Japan is waiting, coming down. Looks like the natural disaster, for example, the typhoon or earthquake or something like that. So that's why Japan's reaction is very calm. China believed making the pressure is a good tool to persuade others against Taiwan, against EU, against others. Indeed, every time that their way looks like that. But China hasn't succeeded. The more pressure means that the more cooperation in the country around China. Recently, the US-Japan relation has strengthened. Australia-Japan relation, Philippines-Japan relation, Vietnam-Japan relation, especially India is the most important country. And so now the Taiwan-Japan relation will be good, I think. So China makes the pressure and China creates a bigger enemy. That is the situation. So there is no problem for Japan side, I think. Thank you.
Right, thank you. And can you please tell us, how is Japanese media covering this issue? Are they supportive of newly elected Prime Minister's stance, or are they criticizing her?
Japanese media's stance is something the confusing situation, because they did not expect such kind of strong reaction from China side. And but at the same time, in Japan, many people do not want Prime Minister Takaichi to back down, because the Prime Minister Takaichi's explanation is honest and explanation about situation. If the war has happened just side of Japan, it could be the crisis for survival for Japan. It's very clear. So that's why it is impossible to back down. Some media say she should not say honestly, but anyway, everyone admits this is a fact. That is the current situation. So fact has revealed, but still fact is fact. That is a very important perception in Japan.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Satoru for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now moving on, in Johannesburg, Chinese Premier Li Qiang has said that China stands ready to work with South Africa to deepen political mutual trust and firmly support each other on issues concerning their respective core interests and major concerns as well. These comments came during his meeting with the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa ahead of the 20th G20 summit. Lee has also said that China is ready to continue working with South Africa to carry forward their traditional friendship and expand cooperation across various fields to promote the common development of the two countries, as well as unity and cooperation between China and Africa as a whole. He has announced that they are willing to work with South Africa to safeguard the multilateral trading system and promote the early implementation of zero tariff treatment for South African goods. Meanwhile, President Ramaphosa has added that South Africa stands ready to strengthen communication and coordination with China within the United Nations, the G20, and other multilateral frameworks to uphold multilateralism jointly. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru, for staying with us. Now, what are the political motives of China and South Africa, indeed, for each other to cooperate and to vow mutual trust and gain momentum on these closing their cooperation and relationship?
In this case, we need to remember the feature of China's diplomacy. Every time they find the power vacuum, they try to expand their influence and take that area of the power vacuum. In this case, currently, U.S. and South Africa relation has been a little bit deteriorating situation. So that's why China got the chance to expand their influence in South Africa. So every time they try to search the power vacuum and exploit it. But the problem is every time trouble has happened and the power vacuum has created and China expand influence it. So in this case, view from the other country, China's style is a little bit bad style because they steal something as a thief. So it looks like. So that's why China tried to exploit the situation, that is true, but at the same time, such attitude itself is not popular as a great power in the world stage. Thank you.
Right, and what political implications could arise from South Africa's reaffirmation of one China policy?
One China policy is many countries respect the China's policy. So in this case, this is not a big problem. Anyway, the country who admit Taiwan as an independent country as a formal diplomatic stance is very limited. But at the same time, many countries try to keep the relation with Taiwan. That is also fact. So this in front of China, many countries respect China's opinion. But this is not the meaning they try to isolate Taiwan or choosing the side to join the war or invade Taiwan. So that's why China should not overestimate such kind of support of the international community in this case. Many countries in the world try to take distance from this issue, but do not be the side of China.
Right. Thank you very much for sharing that. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on, the Trump administration is considering approving sales of NVIDIA's H200 artificial intelligence chips to China to improve bilateral relations and boost prospects for exports of advanced U.S. technology. The Commerce Department, which oversees U.S. export controls, is reviewing potential changes to its policy bearing such sales. The White House has stated that the administration is committed to securing America's global technology leadership and safeguarding U.S. national security. The possibility signals a friendlier approach to China after U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping brokered a trade and tech war truce in Busan last month. Now we move on to our next news. China and Uzbekistan are pushing their partnership into a new phase. Today in Tashkent, Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Uzbek counterpart Bakhtiyor Saidov has held their second strategic dialogue. Wang has said that both countries are building a new model of good neighborliness and mutual trust, guided by the recent consensus between Presidents Xi Jinping and Shavkat Mirziyoyev. He has highlighted fast-growing trade major connectivity projects like the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan Railway and expanding cooperation in green energy, high-tech, education, and tourism. China also praised Uzbekistan's progress in poverty reduction and pledged more support. Both sides vowed to combat terrorism and transnational crime and to coordinate closely within the SCO and China Central Asia mechanisms. Uzbekistan has reaffirmed its commitment to the One China principle and voiced strong backing for China's national reunification. Now we welcome back Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Doctor, for staying with us. Doctor, how is Uzbekistan risking by becoming closer and aligning with China's development and governance initiatives? How do you think this is going to shape Uzbekistan in future?
Central Asia, originally the Soviet has a strong influence as a part of their country. Then after the collapse of the Soviet, Russia has kept their influence in this area. But under the current situation, Russia is relying on China and Russia is losing the influence. So that's why China got the chance. When the power vacuum they found, they try to expand the influence. So now that they try to take Central Asia, and so on surface, Russia-China relation is very good, and Russia rely on China. Indeed, this is not just on surface, very deep now. But at the same time, China is taking Russia's influence area through this cooperation. So, view from Uzbekistan, what are they thinking? Indeed, for the smaller countries, two choices is very useful because choosing the one side, another side worry. That's why they try to negotiate with another side and get more support. So Russia and China, both are choice for Uzbekistan. This is not a bad situation. So that's why the view from Uzbekistan cooperate with China, cooperate with Russia, both are choices for them. And China exploits the situation to expand the influence to the Central Asia. This is China's influence. So that's why the two countries decide to cooperate. But at the same time, Uzbekistan's choice is want to keep the multi-choices. And China's interest is taking Uzbekistan's, or taking the influence towards Uzbekistan. So this means reducing the influence of the Russia's interest for China. So that's why the two countries thinking differently. So this means that even if they cooperate each other, still their interest is different. We should not forget it. That is my analysis. Thank you.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Dr. Satoru Nagao for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. China's Vice Premier He Lifeng held a bilateral meeting with former U.S. National Security Advisor Stephen Hadley in Beijing. Has said that the recent meeting between the Chinese and U.S. presidents in Busan has set the direction for future economic and trade ties. He has stressed that both nations shared broad common interests and that trade should remain the stabilizing force in China-U.S. relations. He Lifeng has also expressed hope that the Atlantic Council will help advance stable economic cooperation and briefed Hadley on the latest CPC Central Committee commission. Hadley has praised the progress made by both leaders and said he will continue to support dialogue between the two countries. Now we move on to Asia. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has held a bilateral meeting with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese in Johannesburg on the sidelines of G20 summit. Both leaders said ties remain strong and agreed to deepen economic defense and security cooperation. Albanese has also offered condolences for the Red Fort terror attack and the Saudi bus crash that killed several Indian pilgrims. South Africa is now hosting G20 under the theme Solidarity, Equality and Sustainability, while Prime Minister Modi also said he will present India's vision of one Earth, one family, one future, and will also join the IBSA summit on the sidelines. Now for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's a senior strategic and international affairs expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much for joining us again. Good to see you. Major General Doctor, looking at this news, how do you think India's growing international influence is now being showcased in G20 amid US's absence and only few big countries joining G20 now?
Subha, I think this is a passing phase because I don't think the influence of G20 is going to wane, because G20 is a very, very strong forum. It has and a very inclusive one, and especially if we look at the global south, there has been a move by India in G20 summit in Delhi, if you remember. The African countries were co-opted into this multilateral organization we have. And G20 has got a lot of relevance and significance. And especially when we talk about a digital economy, when we talk about furtherance of taking digital infrastructure forward. A second aspect is about climate change, climate energy. We are talking about renewable energy and climate cooperation. Third is the same, continuing in this same vein, the future of energy is in green hydrogen, solar energy. So we are looking at these avenues and trying to further the technology we have. We will be sharing with other countries. Countries will be sharing with each other. So it's a very potent forum. And then one more important aspect is in G20, we also discuss counter-terrorism, because terrorism is now a global phenomena. You can't say that it is restricted to India, Pakistan, China, or South Asia. Terrorism is happening everywhere. Middle East, West Asia is a testimony to the fact that how deadly terrorism can take shape. If you remember, 7th October incident, 2023, where the Hamas carried out this deadly strike in Israel, and what was the retaliation? We have lost approximately 70,000 people after that. So I think these are very important issues. The next important G20 brings in a very interesting facet is trade and economic engagement. And we have seen that whenever a summit takes place, there are bilateral meetings also, because that is the plus point of this summit. Because when such a large number of countries come together, you may not have the head of states all the time here, because of some sort of commitments they may be having. But sufficient senior in the hierarchy of that country is attending, either a number 2 or number 3 is attending. So when we discuss the economic and trade cooperation, that is also a very important facet, where in the bilaterals also a number of trade agreements are there, and we have seen the head of states coming with slightly larger delegations when these meetings are held, because they want to discuss trade, commerce, and all these things, and especially when we see geopolitical churning taking place in the world today, because everybody is threatened by the vulnerable supply chains, because in any sort of incident happening in any part of the world, the supply chains get disturbed. So one is looking to discuss with other countries on alternative supply chain. And the
Yes.
last important aspect is space and technology cooperation. We have seen a lot of discussion on cyber and space. So this is the future. So
Yes.
when we talk of the future, these summits become extremely important, and therefore I feel that it will continue to remain relevant.
Yes, and Major General Doctor, as you rightfully mentioned, the benefits of G20 being bilaterals, as we know that one of them just held was India-Australia bilateral. So what does India and Australia share in common in their Indo-Pacific strategy and security priorities in this region?
Very good question you
Thank
just.
you.
And one important aspect, we have a renewable energy partnership with Australia, and this was launched in the last summit. This partnership focuses on solar PV, green hydrogen, and storage of energy, and a two-way investment in renewable energy products as well as capacity building. So I think from from Australia's perspective, exporting critical materials required for green technology like lithium, cobalt to India is a very important part of this bilateral. From India's side, it's all about securing the supply chains and the transition of energy. The second important aspect in the bilateral is that both these countries share a comprehensive strategic partnership in defense and security. And here in this sidelines, we are going to emphasize, or we emphasize with Australia, how to further the security cooperation between the two countries, because there is a very significant increase in the maritime cooperation. As you would remember, the joint exercises, we Navy of those two countries and spreading maritime domain awareness. So, and the third aspect is the defense industry cooperation, because India's defense industry is now emerging into a very important one, and with the critical minerals coming from Australia, there will be a scope for technology sharing. Then this bilateral is extremely important in the area of trade and economic development. And as per the Australian embassy figures, the two-way trade between the two countries has reached $49 billion. So it's a significant momentum, I would say, that both sides are working on a comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, as it is called, is SICA, and it is building on the existing economic cooperation and trade agreement, ECTA. So through this framework, we are looking at emphasizing a rule-based multilateral trading system. And in this joint partnership statement, both the countries are committed to the WTO reforms and strengthening the trade rules. And the next and the last important aspect is education, mobility, and people-to-people ties. Because we have seen that Australia and India, people-to-people ties are growing very, very strong. And this is central to the relationship between the two countries. Australia has a working holiday maker visa scheme for the Indians also, and the mates it is called, and there is another scheme which is called mates, a mobility arrangement for talented early professionals. So both these schemes are being expanded, and I'm sure that there would be a deeper institutional education links between the two countries. New consulates have opened in Bangalore and Brisbane to strengthen the cultural, trade and educational ties. And my last point is about space and technology. It's extremely important because Australia plans to launch satellites on Indian launch vehicles in 2026.
Yes.
So there is this joint space industry initiative. On the innovation front, we have the 2+2 dialogues on defense and foreign affairs. They have launched the RISE escalator,
Yes.
rapid innovation and startup expansion. So I think we are going miles and miles ahead with our cooperation with Australia, and I think in times to come it's going to be a game changer in this region.
100%, yes, we'll be eyeing that. Thank you very much, Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar, for joining us and sharing that insight as a senior strategic and international affairs expert. And that's a wrap on the China Report. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.